Welcome to the Deep in State presented by 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐷. On today's episode, we have Daniel Ammann, co-founder over at Onocoy. This episode is sponsored by 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐷, the most experienced DePIN consultancy in the space. We help projects develop strategy, messaging, and token incentives. We'll have a little bit more on us later in the show. Before we get started, make sure you hit like, subscribe, smash the bell, all the great things that help us keep bringing great guests like Daniel to you. Daniel, thanks so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I know you're ultra busy, but I thought we'd start off with the basics. Who are you and what's your relationship to Onocoy?
I'm Daniel Ammann. I'm a veteran in the GPS industry. Did a first startup in the space, which IPO'd, a company called u-blox, which today is market leading in automotive and drone GPS. Then initiated Onocoy to solve the service side on high precision GPS.
Okay. And then we've got the big takeaway there for those watching is that you've been in this industry a long time. You've been a part of some really important pieces of it, and you saw this opportunity to go deep in with Onocoy and got after it. So at this point, we got some pretty big news in the Onocoy world. Let's start with that. What's coming down the pipe?
Yes, so we're going to TGE. Plan is sometime in July that we're going to issue the token on decentralized exchange. That's one really exciting thing that's happening. Maybe even more important is that we have revenues. So our system is being used by the industry. So we're providing data into several networks, which in turn then provide high precision to applications in the avionics, in the drone, in the robotic space. I think that's the two main things. So product market fit is proven. And I think that's the two exciting things that have and will happen.
Yeah. So TGE is a big deal. A lot of attention gets put on that by miners, and I think really the big takeaway for them is, hey, it's coming. B, for me as an American, this is a Swiss company, so they usually do things on time. They're pretty precise. I don't think we're going to see this delayed, but every other project gets delayed, so if it does, no big deal. Are there any things that you think miners should prepare for as we get closer to TGE? Should they be paying attention to this Bono to Ono thing? Is there anything they should kind of get ready for?
Yes, indeed. So there will be a conversion of Bono to Ono, where as time passes, the conversion factor gets higher. We do that also to make sure that there's not too much fluctuation in the price in the beginning, and to stabilize things, because yes, it is a TGE and it can go different ways. But the normal channels in our Discord, on Twitter, that's where we communicate and where we talk. That's where the news happens.
Got it. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my partner, Max Gold, helped design some of the incentives around there. So that means, Absolutely. From my book, they're about as good as they get. That guy is a genius when it comes to incentives and making sure people are doing the things that are the best for the project. Okay, let's talk about the big thing then, because we got the TGE news out of the way. We got this kind of Ono and Bono conversion out of the way, or Ono and Bono conversion out of the way. I think those are really important. For me, I'm always really interested in the deep inside is what are you doing that's new? Can you walk me through this idea you have with vertical and horizontal plays in DePIN? Because every other play that I've seen in DePIN is vertical, and you guys are doing this, or not everyone, but you guys are doing this horizontal one. Walk me through that.
Sure. In my mind, there's like three classes of DePIN projects. When we talk application level DePIN, there's the DePINs who do infrastructure, like layer ones and those people. But when you have an application that profits from a DePIN approach, there's three ways. Either the DePIN project has no market and waits for a market to exist, or then there is a market, and then there's two ways how you can go after this market. Either you go vertical, meaning you do everything from the hardware device that the miners buy to providing the blockchain, the incentive systems, to selling the data, to also making the devices which in turn use that data. That's vertical. In the end, this means you're competing with an existing industry. So there is a market and there's players out there, but they don't do it the Web3, the DePIN way. But you start competing with them. So the N+1 company who does the same thing, but with a DePIN angle. And that means your differentiation is typically then on the level of price. You're competing, but you need to reinvent many of the wheels that established players have, like distribution channels, like the marketing side, different verticals. You need to focus because you cannot do that every. That's the vertical. The horizontal play is quite the opposite. There, you just do one part of a whole value chain. So accepting that there's different parties in that stack until the end application. And in our case, that means we don't do the hardware, because there's plenty of hardware manufacturers out there who do the devices which are good enough, which are sufficient for high precision GPS. So we don't need to worry about that. We rather want to have different players having different differentiating features on the mining device side, but the same also on the demand side. So we are not going into different verticals. We don't sell rovers. We don't do anything specific for certain verticals. We rather want to have the existing industry, which has been there for like 20 years. We want them to be able to build on top instead of seeing us as competitors. So that's the horizontal play versus vertical. A bit like Google and Apple in the earlier days, Google providing part of an overall solution, like the Android operating system, and not doing the phones. That has changed, but that was the initial idea. And Apple being more a vertical integrated ecosystem where everything comes from Apple, and it works beautifully in itself. And there's no right or wrong about horizontal versus vertical, but it's different approaches.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting to see. And it's also, for me as an onlooker and also an advisor to Onocoy and a former advisor to GeoNet, really cool to see that both of these companies are taking these really different paths. So we're seeing the GeoNet is exploring the vertical side. You guys are doing the horizontal. And I think of them more like, fast action versus slow action. And a slower action has more of a chance to get much, much bigger and to really develop an entirely new aspect, where fast action says, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this same thing, I'm going to compete on price, as you said. And that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's always good if you have a price advantage. But I'm really curious to see how Onocoy develops this kind of horizontal idea system and really how it executes it in this new world. Are there aspects of this horizontal piece that you think will really give Onocoy a massive advantage over the long term?
Yes, look, since we don't do the hardware, we are basing the whole system on established standards that have been around for a long time. So that also allows anyone who has a device to participate all the way towards do-it-yourself devices. So people, they buy Raspberry Pis, they buy GNSS receivers on AliExpress, put them together, put some Docker images, and they can go and start mining. If that all works, if they put antenna and high visibility, they can participate. And so we have a much broader basis. And the whole supply chain issues that you would otherwise have with shipping devices around the planet and all that is solved. And I think that's definitely an advantage. But even more important is there's quite a large installed base of existing reference stations out there, people who have been purchasing such devices for a different purpose, because they need for their own application, they needed a reference station. And for them, we can offer a additional monetization path for the hardware infrastructure that they already have. And part of our network today is already based on such stations, so that's not new installs. So it also makes a lot of sense because you can reuse existing hardware instead of imposing our hardware, our proprietary hardware onto others.
Yeah. And I liked it. I know when I got the X5, which is sitting, the Mosaic X5, which is sitting right behind me and has been producing a data stream, it was really cool. I wasn't a GNSS native. I still would not consider myself a GNSS native by a long shot. But it was really cool to realize, I can take this data stream and add it to the Onocoy network. And all of a sudden, Onocoy has the extra data stream. Anyone can use that, and that's pretty cool. But I can also use it for myself. I really like the idea of this being open, and I think that's really in line with kind of the best of what DePIN offers, where it's saying, hey, you're all producing these data streams anyway, whether you're Helium and you're creating LoRaWAN coverage, or you're Demo, or you're Hive Mapper, and you're doing imagery, like any of these things, you should also have the option to receive some kind of rewards for this. And I think that's a super cool thing to see that you guys are doing.
I mean, just adding on that, the downside on that is we need to deal with a wide variety of different devices. And also we need to check the quality of the data that comes in much more stringent than if we would have control over the hardware. But I think we found our ways how to do that. I'm really happy with the performance that we're seeing from most of the devices, and we also adjust rewarding accordingly. So we're not just counting number of satellites, we're counting really deep GNSS measurements, code and carrier phase noises, and cycle sleeps, and all those nitty-gritties that we can extract from the signals.
Yeah, I think that's probably the single biggest argument or challenge that you guys have, at least from my kind of non-technical perspective, is how do you take all of these different streams and how do you make sure that the stream you're getting is the stream that the streamer says you're getting and that you're not getting spoofed or there's not someone coming in and trying to game the system? I think that's the single biggest challenge kind of argument that I can think of against Onocoy. Can you, I mean, obviously that's not something you solve overnight. Walk me through there how you're approaching that, not only now, but over time as we keep going forward.
Sure. So, I mean, the GPS signals, as they're being received, they correlate in the vicinity. So if you have two stations nearby, the measurements are not the same, but they correlate. So things like the atmosphere, the troposphere, but also plate tectonics, they need to be in concert in certain areas. And even things like jamming. So if there's somewhere there's a jamming event, so a denial of service attack essentially on GNSS, this should be visible on several receivers. And if there's just one receiver continuously still providing data because it's not aware of jamming that's happening, then something is fishy about it.
Yeah.
There's various means how you can do that. We're employing AI technologies to identify spoofers and jammers. Sure, I mean, it's an arms race if you want it to that. And fundamentally, all the GPS systems as such, they don't have any authentication markers on the signal. So even if you had control over the hardware, you still have the attack vector of the antenna. You still can inject data into that, which then causes measurements that look representative for a certain location. So that is a problem in GPS that has been around for 20 years and longer. And it's actually also being used typically in theaters of war. And I think our research that we've done and that we continue doing on how to detect fraud, that continues to be leading edge. That's also research, and we're about to announce also some collaboration that we do on that front.
Yeah, that's been an interesting aspect of Onocoy, is because you have such a big challenge and you have to rise to meet it. You end up doing some new cutting edge research and really moving the field forward. And I think that's, I don't know if that's, something people want to take on, but it certainly helps build the moat where it's like, hey, we have this technology and understanding that isn't common throughout the industry, and we can apply it because we have to apply it. And that ends up making the industry better over time. So I think it's a really cool thing that you're doing, is taking a challenge and making it a strength.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Super cool. Is there anything else that you want folks to know as we come up to TGE? Is there anything where like, hey, I really want you to set your station up here, or we need stations in this place? Or is there anything else that you want the general kind of DePIN audience to know about Onocoy right now?
I think one point is DePIN is quite the opposite of a meme coin, right? It's a long-term play. It's an infrastructure. It's not something that then it gets an immediate 3x or 10x or whatever people look at within months. And we've seen many, especially when it comes to retail, that's often not understood. People just look, here's a new token, and let's see what they do. Okay, there we go. We're the opposite. I mean, we're a real-world application. What we do, we can only do thanks to a DePIN, thanks to a Web3 incentivization scheme, but it's quite the opposite of a meme. So I think it's important to understand that, and that's also how everything is dimensioned. Things like which pools do we have, how are the tokens being unlocked. This is not something that happens immediately. That's designed for 15 years. And we always should keep that in mind. That's, I think, important when you look at the opportunity to participate in the TGE and post-TGE trading.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I love the fact that Onocoy has got this really long-term thinking. You're not saying, hey, we're going to stick around for a year and see what happens. Is that every conversation I've been a part of is we think out how to how does a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, what do these things look like, and then how do we design to make sure that the network is not only strong now but in the future. Super, super cool. Daniel, thanks so much for making the time. I know you're super busy. I know there's a lot of other things you can do, so I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom and insight and perspective with us.
Thank you very much.